Hello and welcome to another episode of India and Global Left. If you are new to the show, please hit that subscribe button. Also consider becoming a YouTube member, a Patreon, or donate a small amount given in the link in the description box. Let me welcome our guest tonight, Laith Marouf. Laith is a media activist and journalist who launched Free Palestine TV to support the resistance against Zionism and imperialism. Laith, welcome back to India and Global Left.
Good to be with you, Jay. Thank you very much.
I wanted to start with Israel, Lebanon, given the conflict has intensified. So if you could update us the ground situation in Lebanon.
Well, since yesterday, where Hezbollah finally retaliated to 14 months of Israeli violations of the quote-unquote ceasefire, the Zionists have been bombarding the southern suburb of Beirut and much of the south of Lebanon. But in the morning, the Lebanese military withdrew from 30 somewhat positions that it controls in the south of Lebanon and ran away to the north of the Litani, leaving the south of Lebanon basically open for possible invasion. And over the last few hours, we have seen attempts by the Zionist military to cross into Lebanese territory. Doing that just maybe half an hour ago, the Israeli media claimed that an Israeli tank attempting to cross into Lebanon was targeted by a guided missile and that the tank is burning. Since the morning, Hezbollah has conducted 4 waves of missiles and drones, all being announced by official channels of Hezbollah, directed at military positions in the Golan Heights, in the North Galilee, and in the Hula Valley, that is like kind of the panhandle that sticks out from North Palestine into the area between Syria and Lebanon. So the battle is on. It's clear that the Zionists want to invade the south of Lebanon, but it's also very clear that Hezbollah had calculated all these possibilities before reopening the battle with the Zionists 24 hours ago.
During the talks about ground invasion and the resistance against it, if you could comment on whether Israel would attempt to or be able to do a ground invasion, and what would be the likely consequence or strategy of Hezbollah to fight against that?
Yeah, I mean, now the villages in the south of Lebanon are practically deserted. Already before the beginning of this round of confrontation, much of these villages were destroyed during the ceasefire, quote unquote. So this is going to be an empty land with no cover that the Israelis are going to be attempting to invade. And clearly, this makes them easy target for any resistance on the ground. It's clear from having both that tank being directly attacked by guided missiles and the frontline bases around the Shaba farms that's at the foothills of the Golan Heights being bombarded over the last few hours. That shows you that the resistance, Hezbollah, is ready and has a plan. And it's actually most probably what they've just done. And this is now, I think more and more analysts are going to realize this, is that they baited the Israelis to bring out 100,000 of their reserve to be stationed on the border with Lebanon and to attempt to invade South Lebanon while their supply lines from central and North Palestine are going to be bombarded by both Hezbollah and the Iranians. So we're going to have a entrapped army, that's 100,000 soldiers, that has no supply route and is invading a territory with no cover. So I think we will be seeing large numbers of Israeli soldiers being eradicated if the Zionists actually decide to attempt this foolish invasion of South Lebanon.
And can you talk a little bit about the role of the government in Beirut? My own reading of some of the statements over the months by President Aoun seems to be extremely hostile to Hezbollah. There are talks about his relationship with the United States, the embassy, if you like, in Lebanon. Can you conceptualize? The role of the government in Lebanon, given the complexity and layer structure of Lebanese society?
Yeah, I mean, the statements of President Aoun have been less hostile than the statements of Prime Minister Nawaf Salam, which a lot of people call him Prime Minister Shalom. Clearly, he's representing the interests of the Zionists in Lebanon. For instance, there was a joint cabinet meeting the minute that Hezbollah began its bombardment of Zionist positions in the north of Palestine, where the president, the prime minister, and the ministers of the government, as well as the commander-in-chief of the Lebanese military, General Haikal, were gathered, and there was a verbal fight between both the chief of staff, General Haikal, and the Prime Minister Nawaf Salam. There's a lot of leaks about what happened in this cabinet meeting. It was printed and discussed in the Lebanese media over the last 24 hours. And in the initial plan that General Haikal had put forward to the cabinet was about the Lebanese military actually defending South Lebanon and coordinating its defense efforts with the resistance in the south to guarantee the protection of the territories in the south. What we hear from these leaks right now is that Prime Minister Nawaf Salam was screaming at the chief of staff, telling him that he will not allow the Lebanese military to lose any of its soldiers to defend the south of Lebanon because of the actions of Hezbollah as he declared them, and that led to a huge argument inside the cabinet. The president, of course, of Lebanon doesn't have as much say in the decisions of the cabinet of Lebanon. So in the end, the chief of staff was ordered to withdraw the Lebanese military from south of the Litani and to attempt to disarm Hezbollah in the north of the Litani simultaneously. And this is not going to happen, of course. What we saw is just the withdrawal of the Lebanese military. And General Haikal knows that the Lebanese military has no capabilities to confront Hezbollah. So we will not see that. And if it happens that actually somehow during this battle, the Lebanese military attempts to confront Hezbollah, we may see for the first time Hezbollah taking control of the government, something that Hezbollah has refused to do since 2000, the year 2000, when they liberated the country. They became the only liberationist movement in the history of humanity that liberated a country and did not take control of its government. So now it's in the midst of this regional war of survival and existence, where the enemy of humanity, the pedophilic, cannibalistic empire and its colony, are killing and liquidating leaders in the axis of resistance, politically elected people, heads of states, heads of religious, communities. I think we may be seeing right now the axis of resistance also resorting to this. This is the only way they can have a deterrence in reality. Look, the axis of resistance right now, led by Iran, is with its military operations, are creating a deterrence that is an attack on Iranian territory, will mean an attack on all Western interests in the region, imperialist interests. The only thing that they need to right now solidify as another formula of relations with the empire is that an assassination of political leaders in the axis will lead to an assassination in the political leaders of the empire, and this is what I think will be coming. This is why the vassal emirs of the Emirates are now hiding in Egypt. This is why the vassal emirs of Bahrain are now hiding in Saudi. This is why the vassals of emirs of Kuwait are also hiding in Saudi. They're all scared of that they could be liquidated at any moment by the axis of resistance. These countries right now that we just mentioned, the Emirates, Bahrain, and Kuwait, I think are on the edge of collapse as states with the absence of these emirs and the absence of any American military defense realities. I know I went there on a longer answer, but I think, given all this context, if the Lebanese government continues to not only not defend the Lebanese territory, but somehow flips to being in confrontation with Hezbollah directly, I think it will cease to exist the moment they do that.
I come to the regional conflict, but if I could start ask one more question on this, what is the sentiment among different segments of the population or in different parts of Lebanon regarding the friction between the government in Beirut and Hezbollah?
Yeah, look, if we look at just the population makeup in Lebanon, you will realize that, just a little bit over 50% of the population is Shia. And these are the populations that are suffering directly because of the Zionist indiscriminate bombardment campaigns and orders for evacuation. So, the wave of evacuation that we saw in the last 24 hours and internal displacement in Lebanon is larger than that we saw throughout the war, the last 66 days and or the whole year and a half before the quote-unquote ceasefire came into effect. So we saw, 1 million Lebanese from the south of Lebanon and from the Dahiya exit their residences and are now sleeping in the streets or looking for shelters in public institutions like schools and what have you, and are moving to areas that are more north in the country. Now, this population clearly is ready to sacrifice to defend their homeland and to revenge against the assassinations of Sayyid Hassan Nasrallah and the Ayatollah, the highest religious authority in Shia Islam. This is no doubt about it. Then now we add to it, of course, what the vast majority of the non-Shia population, both Christian and Sunni, are watching as the United States and the empire as a whole, the Zionist empire as a whole, is conducting genocidal actions, whether it's like inside Gaza, in Lebanon, in Syria, in Yemen, and now in Iran with attacks, deliberate attacks on media, on hospitals, on schools, and the massacres that we saw of the girls' school in the south of Iran. So this population also just watched what happened in Syria with the Wahhabi death cult being brought into power by the Zionists. So I think the vast majority of the Lebanese people are, standing behind the resistance and are rooting for Iran to destroy the presence of the Americans and help end the existence of the Zionist colony. There's no doubt about it. Everything now is exposed globally, and the same way that all these revelations that have come out over the last 2.5 years since the Aqsa flood began, that have changed public opinion globally and have changed human consciousness globally on what is Zionism, what's Palestine, what's the evils of the Zionists within states that are outside even the colony, looking at the Epstein class and the and that how that is affecting the legitimacy of huge swaths of the Western civilization. So this is happening in the Lebanese population, above and beyond the realities that the Lebanese are living because of the Zionists next door and how that is affecting their life.
Context of this round of escalation is the conflict between Iran and the US and the Zionist entity. And so maybe you have bits and pieces of the regional aspect, but if I could ask you a specific question about what do you think is the significance or impact of the conflict with Iran and the conflict with Hezbollah and vice versa. In other words, given there are two fronts now opened at the same time for Israel, and given they are under tremendous stress economically, internally, politically, militarily, etc., how would they cope up with these two fronts?
Yeah, I think there's a third front coming very soon. I think Ansar Allah in Yemen will be joining. This is with no doubt in my mind. They're already also the Iraqi Hezbollah and resistance in general in Iraq have been, pounding American positions for the last 48 hours and have destroyed practically the presence of the United States or Israel in the Kurdistan region and the American base, a spy base in Baghdad. So we are seeing right now even the Iraqi resistance begin to target American presence inside Jordan and French presence inside Jordan and British presence inside Jordan. So as soon as that front is also softened enough, I think the Iraqi resistance will start bombarding the Zionist colony once the vassal regime in Jordan is subdued. So how long can they sustain such a reality? The Zionist colony cannot defend itself against even Hamas or Islamic Jihad by itself ever. Since October 7th, this war has been fought by the combined military might of the Jewish empire ruled from DC, this empire of pedophilia and cannibalism. That includes all the Gulf countries, that includes all the European countries, that includes much of Latin America and Oceania and now India, we know, of course, right? So this has been the reality. If the Zionist colony was left by itself to fight just Hamas, it would have ceased to exist in November 2023. So how is it faring right now when all the axis of resistance is combined together attacking the Zionist colony, which hasn't happened before? I think it's in its worst position in history. And given that much of the layers of air defense that are stretched by the empire from Erbil to the United American Emirates have been destroyed, the air defenses inside the Zionist colony are right now at their weakest. We're seeing the rate of weapons landing on their target today at rates which were required by 10 days of war in the 12-day war. You see, like every day in the 12-day war last year, we saw higher and higher, landing percentages of the Iranian missiles. Well, today we're seeing it by the third day of this war, the same rates that were at the 10th day. So and given that the United States hasn't been able to use, I think, their sea-based air defenses right now, they ran away because Cyprus got hit by Iran and Hezbollah, according to the Zionists. Over the last 24 hours, there have been 4 waves of attacks on Cyprus, where it is the logistical hub of all of the American efforts in the Eastern Mediterranean. Right now, the destroyers and the aircraft carrier, the Gerald Ford, which is in the Eastern Mediterranean, is withdrawing to behind Cyprus. So it's becoming harder for them to use their Aegis missiles to defend the Zionist colony. The THAADs and the arrows are working overtime, and already the Iranians have hit multiple THAAD and arrow batteries. So I think, what looked like a total collapse of the Zionist colony in the 12-day war is going to look like a child's play in the next 2 days. In the next 2 days, the United States is going to have to make a choice on behalf of the Zionist colony. Either they end this war with surrender, okay, or they will have to use a nuclear weapon to sustain the existence of this Zionist colony. And once that happens, I think all the doors of hell will be open.
According to the USS Lincoln is on retreat in the Indian Ocean. I wanted to ask you a broader question about whether this is a significant moment of the beginning of the end of the US empire in the region, or if we think of the region in terms of Western empire, it has been a century at the very least. And Operation Alaska Flood was historic in that sense, given it was from there on the resistance in Palestine got remarkably linked up with the actions of Ansar Allah in Yemen. The resistance in Lebanon was always there, but it was the Iranian resistance that got linked up in a spectacular way. I mean, it has always been there, but it came up to the front, and it was there for everyone to see. If you could spare us your thoughts on this series of events in the course of more than the last 2 years, and the significance for the region in terms of ending Western imperialism and Zionism in the region.
Yes, it's been, of course, more than a century of war on the Arabic peoples and the Muslim peoples, but concentrated around the area connecting Africa and Asia. And in this, 100 plus years, up until now, we're talking about almost 30 million Arabic people that have been genocided from Mauritania to Iraq to Yemen in that triangle. Of course, Arabic lives are, worthless to many on this planet. So this is at least how the empire has been successful in achieving that killing of sympathy to Arabic peoples as human beings. So, this war, the war in this region never stopped. For us, World War I never ended. I know it's hard to imagine that for people outside this region, but it's been nonstop war since World War I, and now we're finally coming to the kind of crescendo of this 100-year war. And, October 7th and the geniuses that designed October 7th have changed the world, not only the region, okay? Those geniuses that designed October 7th knew that they most likely will not live to see the day of the conclusion of October 7th. They have decided to, sacrifice their life for the freedom that we are seeing now built up globally of humanity, okay? And I think, I know we are on a leftist, communist platform, but it is sometimes hard to not see the divine in what is happening in the resistance of the people of Palestine, of the people of Lebanon, of the people of Yemen and Iran and what have you. It's also impossible to deny that both the Jewish supremacists that are in the colony and or the pedophile cannibalistic class that rules the West are not religious. It's hard to deny that. It's impossible to deny that when the Zionists are telling us day in, day out that this is being done in the name of Judaism against the Amalek, or to hear the speeches of Hexteth, the Secretary of War, just yesterday talking about Islam in denigrating it, and the way that the whole West is talking about this as right now the reports that are coming out from within the American army that officers are telling their soldiers that this is a holy war. So once we see this, and we see this how even though Hezbollah, for instance, was not ready or was not told that October 7th was going to happen, or Iran didn't know if it's happening, or the Yemenis didn't know if it's happening. And once we see how the leadership of all of those Axis of Resistance members have decided in any shape and form to defend Al-Aqsa flood and the Palestinians from genocide in Gaza, even at any cost, and how things rolled out, and how every sacrifice that made us all of humanity sadder and sadder, it also awakened over and over parts of our humanity. And now, when the moment where we all were so in the darkest moment of humanity, watching Maduro being snatched and sold out by his government, watching the genocide, watching the assassinations of great figures like the Ayatollah Khamenei, in this moment of despair comes the sun shining on all of us, comes the human awakening, comes the moment of no return for the Zionist and the cannibalist pedophile elite in the West. And so I think looking back 2.5 years on this war, we are at a crossroad right now. And this crossroad is, on the one side, the Axis of Resistance members and nations that are willing to sacrifice all of their existence to end the suffering of the Palestinian people and humanity in general, and to liberate all of us. Okay, and on the other is eternal war, is eternal slavery, is eternal death for our children. And so humanity is going to make a choice. We are ready here. Our leadership is ready here. Our warriors are ready here to sacrifice themselves, not for their own only liberation, but for the liberation of humanity. And the rest of humanity has to ask itself, is it ready to step in to save itself? Or does it want to eternally be slaves?
You spoke on humanity. I wish you also said a little bit about the strikes in Minab in the Hormozgan province in southern Iran that killed more than, I guess the new figures are like 150 plus kids. And the ugliness of what happened, given the propaganda about beheading of babies in the Operation Alaska Flood, given all the propaganda from Afghanistan to Libya to Iran to Iraq about freedom of women in the West, and given the silence of the New York Times and the Washington Post. If you could tell us a little bit more about how you feel about what they did in Iran.
Yeah, I was watching just a few hours live broadcast from Iran for the mass funeral for these 180 somewhat children. Very sad moments. Of course, the Zionists have targeted also a volleyball court for women, killing all these youth girls that were playing volleyball. They also targeted multiple hospitals, one of them being the Gandhi Hospital in Tehran. It's named after the great liberator of India. And this is ongoing, of course, for 2.5 years. That the primary targets for Israel and the empire as a whole is hospitals, schools, and media. We saw the attacks on the official Iranian government media complex in Tehran last night. We also, by the way, here in Beirut last night, the Zionists attacked beside the offices of Al Mayadeen television with 5 missiles. We went and filmed it. The segment should be coming out on Free Palestine TV today. And they also targeted the family of the war correspondent of Al Mayadeen in South Lebanon, Fatima Ftouni. She's one of the most courageous journalists here in Lebanon. She's still in the south filming right now live for Al Mayadeen television, and they targeted her family, and 7 members of her family were killed, martyred. So this is, the way that the Zionists, the imperialists are working. They believe that they cannot win militarily. So what they need to do is break the will of the people by breaking our hearts, by committing, these infanticides, these ecocides, these femicides, these genocides of the medical and journalistic cadre in our societies, openly and laughing about it in our face to try to tell us nobody can stop us. So this is right now the reality of the warfare that is conducted by the West, which is there's no limits, there's no sacred things, and there's no rules. And as long as, yes, the resistance is still conducting itself, the axis of resistance as a whole, within humane warfare rules, not targeting except military positions of the United States and its vassals and the Zionist colony. I think as long as this is the norm, the Zionists will continue to target civilians. It pains me to say this, but I think hospitals in the Zionist colony must be leveled to the ground. It pains me to say this, but I think the Israeli media outlets and imperialist media outlets in the region, their offices must be leveled to the ground with their occupants inside them in order to create a deterrence. As long as there's no deterrence that says, you do this, we will do the same, they will continue to prioritize these civilian targets as their targets because of their bloodlust. And therefore, we need to create a equivalency deterrence on that front.
My final question, Laith, coming back to what I think is the central point is the resistance in Palestine and struggle for freedom in Palestine. What does all of this, these events, this moment, these historical processes, what do they mean for the resistance in Palestine, given the Israeli occupying forces still occupy large parts of Gaza in the occupied West Bank? They are legalizing and expanding more settlements. They have opened up land records that were considered illegal even by not just 1967 standard, but even 95 Oslo Accords. And you spoke about 100,000 reservists heading north being entrapped, and we know that the Palestinian resistance never disappeared. Hamas didn't surrender, Islamic Jihad didn't surrender, the PFLP didn't surrender, and above all, the Palestinians didn't surrender. What does all this mean for Palestine?
Yeah, I mean, we're watching videos come out of the West Bank over the last 48 hours of these, Jewish supremacist thugs rampaging in Palestinian villages, walking into people's homes and shooting them while the Israeli military is protecting them. Of course, this has been a norm for a while, but now under these conditions of these Jewish supremacists feeling impotent and in the face of real warriors and real armies, like in with their fight with Iran, they are targeting unarmed civilians in remote villages in the West Bank to take out their frustration and to feel like men. So this is happening. And the resistance, I think, in Palestine is waiting for its moment. It cannot enter right now a confrontation with the Zionists in the West Bank and or in Gaza without the Iranian missiles softening the ground for them. But that's coming. That's very much so coming. I think there's even a possibility of the Iraqi resistance moving into Jordan in the next few days as the Jordanian air defenses and military positions start collapsing under the weight of the bombardment by the Iranian and Iraqi resistance. So, and how that will affect the whole West Bank once the longest border of Palestine is exposed to land operations. So we don't want to go too far ahead of ourselves, but clearly this war is different than any other war before in the last two and a half years or rounds of wars. This war is going to open possibilities that weren't available in other stages of this battle. And I think the Palestinian population, just by merely existing after 100 years of this genocide campaign against them, is a huge thorn in the throat of the Zionists, and at any moment, of course, will be active. And I think it will be active. We just have to wait. This war is not going to end before a month, okay? And it may, if by the end of this month there's no surrender by the West, that's where we can have possibilities of a world war. I don't know how things are going to roll out, but I think the Palestinian resistance will be active as soon as the ground is soft for them by bombardment from Iran and the Axis of Resistance members.
Laith, as always, thank you so much for your time, and it was a wonderful conversation.
Great to be with you. See you soon, inshallah.
Hi, my name is Ayushman. I, along with Jyotisman, have started this platform. In the last 2 years, we have tried to build content for the left and progressive forces. We have interviewed economists, historians, political commentators, and activists so far. If you have liked our content so far and want us to build an archive for the left, I have 2 requests for you. Please do consider donating for the cause. Link is in the description below. Also, if you are not able to do so, don't feel sad. You can always like our videos and share our videos to your comrades. Finally, don't forget to hit the subscribe button.